everybody, Kevin here. Today I'm going to put some airbags in the back of my Chevy Silverado. Basically it's a 2024. I'm going to put some rough country airbags in the back, and that way so when I'm towing it's a little more leveler. And then I'm also going to be putting some leveling kit in the front as well, so that'll be another video for you. So I'm going to do some modifications to this truck. I've already done a few, put a rack on the back. It came with the liner, things like that, so putting some other stuff in it as well. I'll do some videos for it, but not for everything. Okay, so let's get to it and let's put some airbags in the back of it. So these are the original rough country airbags. So I haven't found a lot of videos for these on installing it, but this is what it is. This is what comes in it, the airline, the instructions, lots of parts, the top mounting brackets, more brackets. Okay, so basically here's everything that comes in the rough country kit. Obviously not the keys, but here's the airbag. Some assembly required. We'll have to mount everything on it, put all the connections in it. Here's a bunch of the lines. These are the mounting plates that are going to go on here, I'm sure. There's DMP, hey, they're lettered and everything. The U-bolts, got the brackets. Here's all the hardware, and we'll go through it. All the instructions are right here, so we're just going to basically follow the instructions, and we're going to start assembling everything. Okay, so first part of the assembly is you're going to put the valve in. I put some nylon tape around it for the airline and then screwed it in. And then for these, it doesn't really show you well in the instructions, but I'm assuming it's going to be a split washer, then a washer, and you're going to fasten them down. I use blue Loctite is what I do when I put them on. So I'll put, anytime I put a bolt in, I use blue Loctite or anti-seize, depends on what it's for. And then all you're going to do is you're going to tighten them down. I can't find any torque specifications, so I just tighten them pretty much as tight as I can get them. Okay, and then we're going to mount the bottom plate. And then on the bottom plates, I see there's a P, I'm assuming for passenger, and the other one on the bottom plate has a D for drivers. Okay, and so we'll start putting this together. Okay, so I got the airbag assembled. A little bit of an issue is the instructions doesn't show for a standard mounted suspension, so I don't have a lift kit in it. Everything they show in the instructions shows it with a spacer for if you had a lift. So I can't seem to find the direction of the way this lower plate went. So I ended up having to install them just to see what it looked like, to make sure I had the plate on the right side. So basically when you install it, you're gonna have it this way. You're gonna have the plate like that, with that on that. From the valve side, when you flip it up on the drivers, this will be on the opposite side of the valve. So here's the valve, that's where that rests, and this wraps around the shaft. Or the rear axle, sorry. And then these are the two carriage bolt mounting. And then same, that's the driver's side one. And the passenger side one is exactly the same. So here's the valve. Here's the plate. There's it on the opposite side of the valve. Okay, so that's how that goes together. I put Loctite on these when I put them in. Put Loctite on those two bolts. Put nylon tape on the air line when I put it in. And now I'm gonna get under the car and I'm gonna put these in place. Okay, you got everything assembled and ready to go. So you're gonna remove the rear bumper stop. That's the first thing we're gonna do. You're gonna jack up the car, you're gonna take the tire off. I have a jack stand under the suspension of this, no tire on it. I also have a jack to lift the suspension of the rear end, so give me a little bit more room in here. Okay, so you got that off. So basically that's all it is. You just take it off, bolt's a little long. And then we're gonna put the airbag in and fit it up. Okay, so you jack up the suspension a bit. What that means is I used basically the hitch. I jacked the truck from the hitch to raise the suspension to give me room to put the air suspension in. And then basically you're just gonna slide it in. Once you have it, and you see this is where this is, and this is going on the inside. Again, each model, they're all different. The instructions don't show you this for this model, so I kind of had to test it and figure it out. And that's it. You're basically going to have it in place. We're going to drop the two U-bolts in, two carriage bolts in the bottom. I'll show you how all this gets done. Okay, so on the inside of here, there's a couple, on the driver's side, there's, I think, brake lines. And you have to make sure you get these in between here and the brake line on the driver's side. And then on this side, there's a bunch of cables running down here. So when we drop these in, we're gonna have to slide them in so they're inside the cables and they're not gonna crush the cables. And there's a little bit of a gap here. So basically this will be sitting that far away, a finger's width away. On the other side, it'll be sitting flush to the side of it. So this is the best way to do it. Take the back one, put it in, up, over. You can feel it when you slide it down, turns, and basically it's gonna go right in, okay? And then on the inside, it's the same thing, and it's right against the frame. And then there you go, and they're perfectly in. So then we'll throw 2 nuts on that. And so these nuts, they're dimpled nuts. So basically, you can't screw them on by hand. You're gonna end up having to torque them on, they're pretty hard. So you'll get them just started. Once you get them started, they won't go no further. Then you're gonna have to use an impact, is what I found, is you have to use an impact to drive them on. Or you're gonna be there for a bit with a wrench. And then the thing about it too, which I found, because I did the other side already, is that these don't really seem to get that tight. As much as it sinks down, it feels like it's starting to bend the plate, or it's stretching the rod, or the rod's kind of bending. So I torqued them up until I thought they were reasonably tight. But there you go. So the same thing, this one, you put it in and then slide it that way. Same, we're gonna put 2 nuts on. And this is just to hold everything in place. Okay, and then these are pretty much gonna sit that far away, because that makes it perfectly in line with the holes down here on the bottom, which there's 2 holes right here, which I'll show you is right here and right here. This is where the carriage bolts are gonna go, and that's what we're gonna put in from the bottom. And we have to take this rail off right here. So we're gonna be using those torque bolts, and we're gonna take that off. There's 3 of those bolts along here. Not all trucks have this apparently, but this one does. So we're gonna take it from there. Okay, so let's put the carriage bolts in for now. We'll drop them in from the top. And if you don't know what a carriage bolt is, a carriage bolt, basically, it looks like a square nut on the inside of it. It's a flat top. It basically drops into a pre-squared hole, and then basically, so you don't have to hold a wrench on this side. So that'll just drop right into there. And these have nylon nuts that are going on the bottom of them. So the nylon nuts we won't put Loctite on. Okay, so the carriage bolts are sitting in there. Now we're gonna get underneath it and we're gonna put the nylon nuts on. The hardest one to do is the one with the rail side. So the hardest carriage bolt to put in is gonna be this one. It's because of this rail, where the bolt is underneath, to get these nuts and washers on. Very challenging. Did the other side, ended up having to use a socket with another nut inside it and kind of get it up in there. But I'll try and get you a good look at how I did it. Okay, so let's get to that. Okay, so we're gonna move these 3. So there's this bar here, so it's a guard. So we're gonna move these 3 bolts. There's one here, and then there's one here. The reason we're moving these is so we can get to under here, so we get to the bottom of the carriage bolt to put the nut on. There's also another one just off of here, just off to the other side of the suspension. I don't know if you can see it, but anyways, it's over here. So you're gonna remove those 3, and then as soon as you got those 3 off, you're gonna lower this down. Okay, so you take the 3 of them off, and now you can pull this out of the way, and you'll be able to get to the bottom of the carriage bolt, which is under here. Hopefully you can see that from there. Okay, not gonna be able to show you get under there. I'll take the camera and I'll let you see what it looks like under there and on both sides. But I'm not going to be able to get the camera in place to show you me putting on the bolt. Okay, so let's go forward with that. Okay, so there's looking up into it. There's the carriage bolt with this bar being pulled out of the way. Then we'll go up, under, and there's the carriage bolt in there that we got to get to. And then there's one on the other side as well. Okay, so we'll put the nuts and the washers on. Okay, so what I end up doing is I end up putting a little bit of red tape around it. Hold it in place. Don't know why I didn't think of this before. I'm sure this will be 2 seconds now. So now we get it in place. A little bit of tightening. And there we go. And that looks so much easier. Grab the wrench. And it's only like a 1/4 bolt, so you don't need to kill it. It's just to hold the plate in place. So this side, the bolts, the nut's a little off and closer to the axle. So it's actually harder to get tight. You're kind of doing it a bit of an angle. On the last one, I got the socket wedged. So just kind of tighten it, wiggle it out, and that's it. Now we're gonna put this back on. You don't have to if you want, but I put a little bit of anti-seize on everything. All right, so. Okay, so they're all tightened up, and basically that's it for there. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna move on and we're gonna tighten the U-brackets, the upper U-brackets in place. So basically, I'll show you how we're gonna do that. We're gonna tighten up these upper U-brackets, and we'll tighten those with an impact, and we'll get those done up. I'll just show you a little bit with the impact, and then we're gonna hand tighten the rest of it. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're gonna tighten these U-bolts. So I'm using an impact socket with a 9/16 1/2-inch drive. And then basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna tighten them down a little bit. Do the other one as well. So you're gonna kind of get them kind of even. And you can see, so when you're on the side, you can see it sinking down. And they also too, up here, you gotta watch that the U-bolt doesn't bend. Okay? Because you just want to snug them up. You don't want to over tighten them. And that side looks a little longer than this side, so we'll stay like there we go. That's it. So these U-bolts are done. They're sunk. There's nothing pinching. And that's it. And now these are all done. These are in place and these are set. Forgot one thing. They supplied you a heat shield. The only place I can see where the exhaust is even close to it on this truck is on the passenger side. That's the only place that's even close to the airbag. So for the heat shield to be on the exhaust that they show, so I'm going to place it right here. So they give you a couple clamps. Put the 2 clamps on, and then I'm going to tighten those around and get them set up. For the heat shield plate, it comes flat. I just bent this with a pair of pliers, put a little bend in it, another little bend there, and the same on the other side. And the clamps are just an 8mm socket to get them together. And obviously they make it for massive exhausts. And this covers all sizes. So we'll get this together, and this will take a couple minutes. So I'll get it prepped up, and we'll come right back to it. Okay, so I got them tightened up, slimmed down. I also zipped them off with a grinder, make them shorter. Just now they're weapons, so be careful if you do that. I grabbed a little drill impact with an attachment, hoping it made it a little easier to run it the long way. I'll do this until it gets a little tighter. So I guess this will be the best spot for the heat shield. That's all I can see. You can take a look around. Again, you know, read the instructions, didn't really say much. Did find the torque specs on the instructions. They were right on the bottom of the front page. So for all the bolts, it'll have the torque specs right on it, on the page, so you can torque them. I'm gonna go around and torque them after, just to make sure that everything is set right. Okay, so that's done. Heat shield's on. Now we're actually gonna move into the lines. And I'm gonna try a couple different ways to run the lines, and then I'll show you what I did. Okay, so when you're doing the air lines, basically they give you a cutting tool. So it's a nice blade for cutting. It actually works pretty good for the pneumatic lines. So you just put it in, sit at the bottom, and just kind of squeeze it, and it gives you a nice clean cut. What I did is I cut the lines in half, and basically I drilled out the holes in the connection. I'll show you this. And then so what I found is that it's easier to start from this end, from where the filler is on it. And so you're gonna push it in. It's hard to get in. Push it in, the pneumatic line goes in, and it sets, it locks. So there's your pneumatic line in. So it's the best to start for this end for me, I found. So I'm gonna show you how I did it, and I started from the rear end where I'm gonna fill it up. Okay, so basically what I did is I set the pneumatic lines up. I went underneath, I kind of found out roughly where I'm gonna run them. Then what I decided is where I was gonna drill holes. I was either gonna drill them here for the fill ports. I'm gonna do 2 fill ports. You could do 1 if you want. You could tee them in together. The only thing about when you tee pneumatic lines in, just remember this. When you have uneven air pressure, so the heavier load on one side than the other, and you have it teed in, basically what's gonna happen is the air pressure is gonna fill up on the other airbag and increase the pressure on that side versus increasing the pressure on this side. It's gonna use it as a balancer and balance the air pressure in between the two, versus when you have single lines in a pneumatic system, this will be an independent air pressure system. This will be an independent air pressure system. You can do it however you want. Basically, you're just balancing a check. It's really not a big deal. Up to you. This is the way I'm doing it. The fill ports, I decided to go on the side because this is actually all plastic right here. Behind here, there's a metal plate. Behind all this is metal. I didn't want to drill through the metal, start a rust point or anything like that. I just didn't feel like doing it. So I decided to go right here, right here. I just measured over, measured from the inside over one, I think about 1 1/4, 1 1/4, centered it up where the reverse light, centered it up where the reverse light, drill the holes. Then you're basically gonna pop the line in from the back. You basically, if you want it, you don't want it sticking out so far, you can grab another nut somewhere. It doesn't give you an extra spacer nut, but basically, washer, nut, and then you're gonna have the nipple sticking out that far. It's pretty far, but if you want, you can get black caps to make it hidden more. You can do whatever you want. You can spray it with some paint if you wanted to and hide it. You can put another nut on the inside, reduce it so it's only sticking out a little bit. You can do anything you want with this. So basically what you're gonna do, you can put a wrench on the back, hold it in place, and then tighten it, and then just kind of tighten it down. I'm finding it right now that my fingers are holding it enough, and that's tight. We'll do the same with the other side, and then we'll run the line. And we'll fill her up with some air and see how she looks. So from underneath the truck, the rear bumper, the lines are run back in here. I ran them up, I ran them around the frame. So around the whole frame line, all the way up and over into the wheel well and the airbag. So they're all kind of tucked up on the other side. You can't really see them. I ran them aside the cables. So here it is here. It starts right here, runs all the way up in there. They're really hard to see, but I got them tucked up in there nice and neatly. I did the same thing on both sides. Kept it away from the exhaust. Okay, so I hope that helps. I hope that helps you with your installation and your airbags. You can see them there. Right now they're sitting at about 20 PSI I got in them. and so far so good. Okay, so that's the installation of the rough country airbags in this 2024 Chevy Silverado. The only one thing I didn't go over is basically you want to do like an airline check with some soap and water and things like that to make sure that the fittings aren't leaking where you connected them, things like that. So I did that on my own as well. I didn't video it. Okay, so here's the truck with the airbags in it. No air pressure right now. Truck sitting at about 39 and a half to lower wheel well. Okay, so I put 20 psi in. This is no load. Basically gained almost a inch and a half. So that's probably where I'm gonna run it. And then, yeah, we'll see how it looks from there. We'll see how they work. I'll let you know.